and a very warm welcome to everybody. It's said that the best way to capture moments is to pay attention. This is how we cultivate mindfulness. Mindfulness means being awake. It means knowing what you are doing. Well, we surely know what we are doing today, and all of you being here shows your openness to enjoy the beauty of now, this very moment. I'd like to begin by welcoming our guest speaker for today, Dr. Michael Carroll from Global Coaching Alliance, all the way from Philadelphia. It's 6 a.m. where Dr. Carroll lives, and I'd like to thank him for joining us this early in the day. Before I introduce you to him, just some quick operational checkpoints. So the format of this session is that Dr. Carroll would be sharing his ideas for the first 30 to 40 minutes, and then we would open the floor for questions. The duration of the webinar would be for a total of 60 minutes. You could type in your questions in the questions section of the panel that you would be seeing on the top right corner of your screens or at the bottom of your screen if you're listening through the mobile app. Once his talk is over, I'd be picking up the most relevant questions in the order in which we receive them. Please do ask a lot of questions as this will help in meeting the objective of this webinar. So here's a quick introduction to Dr. Carroll. Dr. Carroll has been the Vice President of Human Resources with Shearson Lehman, American Express, Paine Webber, Simon & Schuster, and the Walt Disney Company. As the VP of HR of all and Simon & Schuster's business units through 1988 right through 1999, he played a central role in executing the many acquisitions and divestitures that built S&S into the largest book publisher in the world. At Walt Disney, he played a leadership role in defining organizing and launching the global business unit Disney Publishing Worldwide, the largest publisher of children's consumer books and magazines in the world. He's also the author of Awake at Work, The Mindful Leader, and Fearless at Work, all best-selling books at Amazon, and has lectured on this topic of leadership and mindfulness at Wharton Business School, Columbia University, Yale University, University of Toronto, to name a few. Today, Dr. Carroll is here to talk about his experience, his journey of mindful living, and how this can impact your daily life. So thank you, Dr. Carroll. A very warm welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Hitesh. Thank you very much for inviting me here. This is a real honor. Happy to get up real early in the morning to address your community here in India. So thank you for having me. We have a short time together here, about 60 minutes. So what I'd like to do this morning with everyone is basically go through why is there so much interest in mindfulness awareness meditation, and do a little background on why it's taken off, why, like, Harvard Business School integrates it into its business curriculum, for example. Well, why is this? Why is there such interest? Then I'd like to move into some principles and a little bit of research, not too much research, but just some principles on how is this applied in the workplace. And then actually do the meditation, give an instruction in the meditation, and then we'll have some Q&A. So that's kind of the outline for this this afternoon's discussion. Let me just say a little bit more about myself. There was a very kind introduction from Hitesh on my background, but there's an added piece here I want to add in here. Excuse me. Back in the 70s and 80s, I began my career in business on Wall Street in the 80s. But prior to that, I had met Tibetan teachers and have been studying Tibetan Buddhism since 1976, and during that time, and I've been practicing meditation, mindfulness meditation, since then. So I've been trained also as a teacher in the Kagyu Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, and this training in how to do this meditation, as well as how to impart it helpfully to others. I've also there's parallel training that I've received. Not only do I have corporate experience with companies like Disney and Simon & Schuster, but I'm also trained as a teacher in a Vajrayana lineage out of Tibet. So with that said, Now, why is there so much interest in mindfulness awareness meditation in business settings? And I know that many of the listeners here are engineers and people with advanced degrees in business, physicians. I do a lot of work with physicians myself, physician leaders. Why is there so much interest in mindfulness meditation in business settings? When I started my practice and started working on Wall Street in the early 80s, if you were a meditator, it was people would look down on you. You're kind of like a kid. You'd go to the kids' table. So you kind of had to keep it quiet, so to speak, back in those days. But nowadays, companies like Procter and Gamble, Google, I've taught meditation at Google and eBay and Facebook and Procter and Gamble and AstraZeneca, and we could go on and on. And so why is there an interest in this? And we'll get into some of the very specifics in a moment. But let me give you a little research, a couple of research examples of some of the work that's been done in business settings with this practice. There's a very well-known experiment that they've done in the United States out of the University of Michigan. And essentially what they did is they took 100 IT, information technology personnel, and they gave all 100% of those folks, they gave them a flu shot. And they taught 50 of those folks how to do this very simple practice of mindfulness awareness meditation. And the other 50, they didn't teach how to do the meditation. So, a few months passed. The people who were meditators did this very simple practice, maybe 5 times a week, 30 minutes or so. The other 50 folks didn't do any meditation at all. And after 3 months or so, they brought all 100 back, and they took a white blood cell count of all 100, and they found that 100% of the meditators had a higher white blood cell count to resist the flu than 100% of the non-meditators. So this simple act of just sitting still, which we'll do in a moment, what happened there was it raised the immune system, it strengthened the immune system of those who did this practice. Now, how does that happen? All we're doing is sitting still. I mean, when in a moment, for those, I noticed in the survey that Hitesh sent out that there are a good number of people who meditate, more so do yoga. So you're somewhat familiar with this. I mean, all we're doing is just sitting still, like this. That's all. How does that raise and strengthen one's immune system? Well, what they found was that the part of the brain that regulates the immune system is the same part of the brain that is able to identify and react to a threat. Now, normally when there's a threat, the part of the brain that assesses it, evaluates it, and reacts, it's very quick. Comes in, looks at it, figures it out, does what it needs to do, and then gets back to normal. But in business settings, as many of you well know, the level of intensity that we experience day in and day out on the job, the demands, the expectations, the political difficulties, the conflicts, et cetera, can become so intense that the mind begins to read these challenges as threats and begins to react to the normal workplace setting with what is called a siege mentality, where we are constantly on guard about our experience, checking it, making sure that we're okay, or was that an insult? Am I going to get in trouble? Is that who's saying that? Why is that? That level of constantly trying to discern our experience in terms of our own sense of safety hijacks the immune system. Often that's why we get colds and we get sick when we go on vacation, for example. In any case, when you do this simple practice, the brain and our neurophysiology, our body, goes back to its natural state. And what they found was by doing this practice, the part of the brain that regulates the emotion goes back to its natural state. It's no longer hijacked by threats, and therefore can generate these white blood cell counts. So, number one, why is there interest in the business setting? One is that it is what is widely referred to as a technique for managing our stress. And I put stress in big quotation marks. It's a healthy, physically, mentally, and emotional act that actually produces healthy results in terms of our bodily presence. In this case, managing our immune system. There's more and more research on this. I won't go through it today in our short time together, but there's more and more research on how this simple practice is a very healthy thing to do. Now, it's being applied, frankly, this discipline of sitting still and training the attention, it's being applied in the United States. It's getting stronger in Europe. I've gone down to Brazil. Latin America is getting interested in it. South Korea. Now, you folks in India, and the irony is this practice came from your beautiful culture, your beautiful country. It comes out of the yogic tradition. But here in the States, it's being applied very widely at this point in classrooms, in prisons, in hospital systems. Any hospital that doesn't have a mindfulness-based program for managing anxiety, managing stress, it's odd. Let's put it that way. Most of the major hospital systems have a program. So in classrooms, for example, I'll give you just one more example. One of the real difficulties, as I'm sure it's true in your culture, is kids in the classroom, the attention span. Kids are always playing with little devices, or attention's everywhere, blah, 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 blah. And they use this practice in the classroom to manage the attention of young people in educational settings. And the research has found that, in fact, I was just in a high school the other day working with some teachers there. 2 minutes of silence in the middle of the class, not even the meditation technique, which we'll get into in a moment. 2 minutes of silence in the beginning of the class and 1 minute of silence at the end of the class accelerates attention span within the classroom. Now, there are many reasons for this, and the research goes through it. One of which is one of the difficult elements, particularly in high school or 6th grade through college, is transitions from classes. It's very chaotic. Kids come in, they just came from something, they're all chaotic, and then they have to go to another class afterwards. Silence in between those two transitions accelerates attention in the classroom. And that's just by sitting still. So this kind of results are really increasingly fascinating education leaders, business people, physicians, health professionals. It's applied in prisons. And I know a lot of work has been done in your nation on the application of mindfulness in prison settings. Essentially what happens there is that when inmates and personnel meditate together, they realize that normally in prisons, if you've ever been in one, I've taught meditation in prisons, nobody wants to be in prison. Nobody. But when you meditate together in prison, you realize you're living your lives together for those moments. And it apparently, the research has shown us, cuts aggression, brings aggression down, where inmates and personnel begin to work together more skillfully. So I could go on, but there is a very growing interest in the application of this mindfulness practice in a wide variety of settings. And it's now getting to a point where there are more mature teachers and infrastructure and opportunity to apply it more skillfully. But why business? Now, how is it, which is my area of concentration, which is frankly around leadership. Why are organizations so interested in applying this in business settings? And what I'd like to do, there are many principles, many principles that I could go over, but this is a short time, and I'd like to just take a couple moments, a few moments to just illustrate a couple, and I'll do it with a couple stories, if I may. So the question is well, why are business people interested in meditation? In a certain sense, it's very counterintuitive. You know, we're in business, we got to get going, we got to get work going, let's get going, we got things to do. And what we're suggesting is instead of, you know, constantly rush, this is what you do instead. Just sit here. Business people are like, what? Why would we do that? All right. So I'll tell you a little story that kind of illustrates one of the principles, one of the key principles. So just like this, I'm often invited to teach meditation in business settings. And on occasion, I lead retreats of business leaders, weekend retreats where we practice meditation together and study the discipline and how it's applied. And after one weekend, a gentleman came up to me and said, I really like this. He was a CEO of his own business, and he said he really loves this meditation. It's fantastic. Would you come and teach it to my executive team? I said, sure. You know, invite me over. It'd be fun. I'm always honored. So a month passed by. We'd make a date. I show up at his business, and it's a very beautiful business. He built it himself. You know, a financial organization around insurance products. He had about 450 employees here in the States, on the East Coast. And he built it himself. Beautiful things. I mean, he should be and was very proud of. And he said, well, why don't you come in and meet my staff? So I walk into his boardroom, and you may not get this over the camera here, but everyone's sitting in the boardroom like this, like, oh, no, okay. And the CEO walks in and goes, I just went to a seminar with Michael Carroll about mindful leadership, and I want us all to be mindful leaders and learn to meditate. Michael, take it away. And I was like, okay, you know, so I could begin. I was sensing that I was about to inflict meditation on these poor people. So I started chatting and having a conversation. And as I'm speaking to this small group of people, the chief financial officer, who's just sitting right across from me over here, he keeps looking at his watch like this. And very subtly, you know, just looking down at his watch. And eventually he interrupts me and says, excuse me for a second. Is there a bottom line here? I mean, is there a bottom line to this meditation thing? I said, that's a good question. There is a bottom line. I'm glad you asked. I mean, it's a great question. And, you know, rather than me telling you what the bottom line is, why don't I just show you what the bottom line is? And the CFO goes, oh, that's great. You could show me the bottom line? I said, absolutely. And everyone was perking up. And I said, okay, so I'll show you the bottom line. Here it goes. And I'll show you the bottom line. Here it is. You ready? Here we go. So what happened when I did that? I sat there for about a minute in this room. You know, I normally ask people to, since we're on a webinar, I can't do this, but what happened was people started getting very nervous. They started getting very anxious. And I said, you know, what happened there? One guy said, "Oh, I was getting very uncomfortable. I was very nervous." And another person said, "Yeah, I thought things were starting to unravel." So in any case, I made this point to them, as I will to you, is that all we're talking about here is, a minute of psychological space. That's all. Just psychological space. And what tends to happen for many of us is we begin to panic. There's a sense of discomfort, a sense of restlessness, unease. So that's one of the first principles of mindful leadership is, can we be comfortable in our own skin? Is there a sense of leadership from the point of mindful leadership, or the application of this discipline to leadership, is a sense of being comfortable in our own skin, an ease of presence, that we're normally, what we experience for many of us is a sense of freneticness and speed and restlessness. And that this practice introduces the possibility that we can simply be comfortable in our own skin. This sense of presence in the tradition of this practice essentially is confidence. That as leaders, we can be confident, just in a very simple, organic way. Not confident about something, but confident as who we are and comfortable with it. So that's one of the first elements in this practice, and why many leaders are interested in doing this discipline. And I have an executive coaching company, and I do this kind of coaching, et cetera, et cetera. And leaders, all of us, many of you I'm sure are leaders, the kinds of challenges that we have each day are filled with uncertainties, challenges, conflicts, difficulties, unknowns. And little wonder, we begin to wonder if we can do it, or, gee, how am I going to do this? Am I up to the task? This practice is about discovering a fundamental confidence that one can engage anything from a place of ease and openness and clarity. So that's number one. A lot of organizations are interested in this practice because it gets to the core of leadership confidence. There's a second one. We'll get to the practice in a moment. I'm watching the time, because talking about mindfulness meditation is like standing next to a swimming pool and talking about water. You just might as well jump in. So we'll jump in a minute. So, this sense of confidence and this restlessness of the mind, science has been studying it, looking at it. There's lots of research on this parts of the brain that engage in this perseveration and this speed. But there is one study that I want to bring your attention to by a gentleman by the name of Killingsworth. He's a social researcher out of Harvard. And basically he uses research techniques that use, these devices that we all have that what he tries to do is measure human behavior as it occurs, rather than in retrospect. So you can go on and look up Killingsworth's work, Google it, it's around. But there is one finding that I want to bring your attention to, which helps define why this meditation is so important for business leaders. Essentially, in this piece of research, what Killingsworth found was that on average, human beings spend 50% of their time, about 50%, it's actually 48.6 or something, but 50% of their time, we, human beings, spend about 50% of our time thinking about something other than what we're doing. Right? Now, if you're in a traffic jam, which I hear you have some of those in Mumbai on occasion, if you're in a traffic jam, the likelihood is if you're sitting in the car, you're thinking about something other than sitting in a traffic jam. So that's on one extreme. On the other extreme, if you're hugging your daughter, your little son, and they're smiling at you, the likelihood is you're not thinking about anything else. It's that experience. You're fully in that experience. And everything in between. But when you average it out, because we have, as you know, human beings have a million very robust set of experiences, but when you average it all out, we spend about 50% of our time thinking about something other than what we're doing. All right. Now here's where the insight occurs. That 50% of the time, when we're thinking about something other than what we're doing, 80% of that time, what we're thinking about is more distressing than the actual experience that we're having. So what that finding indicates is that we're authoring the very distress we're seeking to avoid. Now, for leaders, this ability to stop misleading ourselves is key before we start leading others. And what we find with the meditation is, and we'll do it in a moment, this ability to train your attention, to escort it from thinking to your experience over and over, very boring, very boring. The ability to train your attention and escort it to the present moment. This teaches or is a technique or off the cushion in everyday life, reveals the ability to debias your point of view, debiasing. And there are studies, they're all preliminary studies. There's nothing any sophisticated about the studies or definitive, so to speak, but they're preliminary studies that indicate that meditators or the quality of curiosity about that a meditator has about his or her experience is more clarifying than those who do not meditate. So for example, they did a study at the University of Virginia here on who can be deceived by brands. And there were two populations who were not easily deceived. Those who were experts in the particular topic that the brand was trying to talk about, and number two, a meditator. That the tendency of the mind to debias itself, not buy its own story, not believe the story that's going around and around in our head, but in fact, bring your attention to the actual experience or piece of information that you are actually curious about, is strengthened through the discipline. And this ability to stop misleading. So the fundamental principle here is, in business, what they're finding is that this practice helps leaders debias their point of view in decision making. They don't buy their own story, but they become increasingly curious about actually getting a true measure of what they're trying to lead and manage. And many of you know, as well as I do, I'm sure, that given the proliferation of information, of distorted news, et cetera, social media, that the ability of the mind to determine and discern what is accurate information, what is helpful information from white noise, et cetera, is a highly sought after skill. This discipline of training the mind with this practice strengthens the ability to do that. So those are two. Number one is, as leaders, can we be comfortable in our own skin, have this sense of confidence? Number two is, can we stop kidding ourselves, stop misleading ourselves with the storylines, and in fact, lead others effectively? So I'll give you one more, excuse me, and we'll do the meditation. This is a fairly sophisticated principle that there's been some research on, and I'll illustrate it as a story. Many of us, I don't know if you've ever watched the Olympics, but my wife is used to be a gymnast, and she loves the ice skating and loves watching that kind of stuff. And I have a very difficult time watching ice skating Olympics because, as you all know, at the Olympics, out come two beautiful young people who have been practicing ice skating their whole life. They're young people, 17, 18, 19 years old. And they come out onto this ice, slippery surface on razor blades in front of 56 million people. And they're going to execute this dance and see if they win a gold medal. So, you know, it's beautiful. They start dancing, but at some point they have to execute a leap into the air where they turn 3 times and come down on the ice without falling. And it's, for me at least, and I think for many of us, it's very difficult to witness. That because if they come up and they land, you go, it's fantastic, it's great. And if they fall, so painful to witness. Now, what's going on in that moment when these young people choose to go out on that ice in front of 56 million people and jump up in the air and go around in circles? When you witness this, what we're actually witnessing when these two young people do this is they're choosing to be completely vulnerable, completely exposed in a very profound way in front of 56 million people. This sense of vulnerability normally, for many of us, we consider to be a weakness, something to be avoided. If someone says, as a leader, I'm vulnerable, it's something we prefer not to be. We should be strong, or et cetera, et cetera. But in this practice, what we discover is that vulnerability is not a weakness at all. It's actually the source of power. That being vulnerable is actually our ability to open to our world completely, to be completely in touch with our world, completely in touch with the circumstances that we're trying to either manage, master, engage, learn from. There's a lot of actually interesting social research done on this sense of vulnerability, and I highly recommend for those who haven't heard of Brené Brown. Brené Brown, you just Google her. She has a good TED Talk. You may just listen to her TED Talk. You'll get a real sense of where this research is going, is that creative expression, for example, vulnerability is key to creative expression. Now, the interesting thing is, these people, we think of vulnerability as like, oh, I'm vulnerable. Oh, gee, is it going to happen to me? No. As you notice with these young people, when they chose to be completely vulnerable, they weren't doing it out of weakness. They were doing it out of confidence. And it's very similar to the martial arts. For anyone who's ever practiced martial arts, I've done it for a little while. When you do the martial arts, there's a sense of openness. You're in touch. Your senses are available. That's the sense of vulnerability we're talking about. A physical presence where we're completely open, completely in touch, our senses are alive, and we're willing to touch our world on its terms, not ours. And so vulnerability in leadership is, while it's not something that you're going to hear in the boardroom, in a lot of the advanced leadership training that's occurring at, all of these institutions like Harvard, Drucker School of Management, blah, 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 they actually accent this quality of vulnerability as power, not weakness. And this practice introduces us to the possibility that we can open skillfully in that way. All right, so I could go on, and time is running out. So let's get to the meditation. So in order to understand this practice of mindfulness awareness, one must understand or explore effort. Normally, how we apply effort is we're trying to achieve things, which is completely reasonable. We all, business people out here, engineers, physicians, marketers, we're trying to achieve things. What I call trying to get somewhere. We're always trying to get somewhere, trying to get the project done on time. We're trying to achieve our objectives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nowadays, we're not only trying to get somewhere, we're trying to get there fast. And we all know this, the speed, the intensity, you know, you open up your little computer and the little circle goes around. And at some point you get angry. Come on, let's go. Why isn't my... So the sense of speed and intensity of let's get going. So this effort, if we examine effort, modern day effort, particularly in the workplace, we're trying to get somewhere, we're trying to get there fast. And when we arrive there, we want to be someone else. We want to be more successful. We want to be skinnier. We want to be more loved. We want to be richer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this effort of trying to get somewhere, get there fast, and become someone else is, by definition, not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. Many of you, a young woman chooses to go to university, works very hard, graduates with an MD as a physician. That's a beautiful thing. You know, she worked very hard to get somewhere. She got there and became someone else, someone who can help. However, in understanding mindfulness, awareness, meditation, what we explore here is that there's a blind spot in that effort. And the blind spot is, in the effort of always trying to get somewhere, we forget how to simply be somewhere. And in the effort of trying to become someone else, someone richer, happier, more successful, et cetera, we overlook how to simply be who we are. Very simple. Being who we are, where we are completely. And in order to work with this muscle, we do this practice of mindfulness, awareness, meditation. So I will give the instruction. I know many of you are at home and at work. Some of you are traveling. So if you're driving a car, I would encourage you not to do this meditation unless you pull over to the side of the road. But it's very simple. I'll give you the very simple instruction. It may vary from what others have heard. This is kind of what I would say a very conservative instruction. So essentially, we use very, very little technique. There's very little technique here. And first is sitting up straight. So, if, you know, everyone has different chairs and different arrangements. Typically, you want to have a nice arrangement so it doesn't look cluttered, but whatever it is, wherever you are is fine for this. So we sit up straight. We don't lean back on our chair. We sit up straight and relax. You know, relax your shoulders, maybe shake your arms, just relax. Place your hands just on your legs and just relax sitting up straight. This will be a short session. The neck, normally we have a little crease in the neck here, so just pull your chin in a little bit so your neck is straight. Mouth is not tight, slightly open, just breathing naturally. And your eyes are open, looking down and out with a gentle gaze, not focusing on anything, just a clarity of your senses, your eyes. So we're just sitting here comfortably. So we'll sit here like this for a moment. Now, as you're sitting there, fundamentally, there are two things going on. The first is the immediacy and the vividness of your experience in wherever you are. You may hear traffic. You may see the colors in front of you. You may hear your children running around. You may feel it might be raining out. I don't know. You might feel some moisture in the air. But the first thing I want to bring your attention to is the immediacy of your senses. Very simple, unmistakable, vivid immediacy of your senses. Now, the second thing you'll notice is that you're talking to yourself. There's some commentary going on. The commentary could be like, what's this guy doing? Or, what's next? Why are we doing this? Gee, what time is it? Whatever it happens to be, it's fine. There's no problem with either of these experiences. In fact, it's exactly what we work with in the meditation. And the way we work with it in the meditation is as you're sitting here comfortably in this posture, as soon as you notice that you're thinking, you deliberately recognize that you're thinking by saying to yourself, thinking. And then you bring your attention to your breathing. And you place your attention on your breathing very gently. And you do this along with me if you could. You just place your attention on your breathing very gently. It's not just a mental tracking of the breathing, it's a physical attending. You may feel the breath on your lips or your nostril. You may feel the movement of your chest or your belly as you actually breathe in and out very gently. So you attend to your breathing as you're sitting wherever you're sitting. Now, at some point you'll notice that you're thinking. As soon as you notice you're thinking, label it thinking and bring your attention back to your breathing. All right, we'll do this for a short period, maybe just a few moments. So we'll just begin with a little sound of this bell. Okay, so that was a very short meditation session. Normally I like to do, when introducing this practice, around 10 minutes, but I know we have a short time together. So why don't we can open this up for discussion now if there are some questions, particularly about any questions about that instruction or observations about your experience of doing that short session. And also just open it up broadly if you have any questions about how it's being applied. I know there are some people out there that are meditators who probably may do a different type of meditation, who may want to discuss their own sense of practice and how they bring that to the workplace as well. So maybe we can, Hitesh, we can open this up to discussion, so to speak.
All right. Thank you so much for that interesting talk. And we've already started getting some questions, and I'd like to encourage everybody to ask them, but I'll start taking the first one that we've received from Chaitanya. And the question is that how do we increase concentration in anything that we do, how to be more fully aware of what we are doing and not just while taking a break?
Right. Mm-hmm. Good question. It's important to understand also, this is not a concentration practice, by the way. I mean, that may be a language issue here. This is the ability to train the attention to stabilize, essentially stabilize. Now, the question is, well, how do we do that off the cushion without taking a break, right? Well, first and foremost, the practice, one needs to do this simple practice, right? And I would encourage to do it 10, 15 minutes a day, you know, and put a little timer on. There's Headspace and Calm, and there's a lot of software that can help you do this, whatever. Just get a little timer and time yourself for Insight Timer is another one for a short period. But the key question, which is why this question is important, is, well, what happens off the cushion? What's going on? How do I do this, you know, at work? Well, this is the beauty of the practice, is that the more you actually train the attention, escorting the attention from a thought to the breathing, the more you do that, off the cushion, you'll begin to notice that you are able to attend more skillfully to your experience. The muscle gets stronger. You begin to notice that you can come into a meeting and pause and notice who's in the room rather than rush in with all your thoughts. Or you've just noticed the person that you get your coffee from every morning. You never noticed the person before. Oh, wow. Now you see the person. You're actually there getting your coffee with the person rather than looking at your Twitter feed or whatever it happens to be. So what happens is by strengthening the muscle on the cushion, off the cushion, it begins to express itself in the ability to actually attend to our lives rather than speed past them.
Right. So the next question is by Sachin, and he wants to know what's the best time to meditate and how many times should we do or is advisable?
Yeah, if you're a beginner, well, there's an old Tibetan saying, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Meaning, it's good to meditate in the morning, afternoon, and night. It's good to meditate all the time. But as business people, we know that's not possible. As people who have families, etc. My sense is that the morning is a very powerful time. There's a certain intimacy to getting up and creating a space where we give ourselves 10, 15 minutes to simply sit quietly. You know, I often have my coffee next to me when I do my meditation. I just, not on that sipping, well, I just sit there. It's a very gentle time in the morning. Often as business people who work, we come home, we're exhausted. You know, we have our dinner. So I have found that the intimacy of morning can offer us an opportunity to practice. And for those who are beginning, the issue isn't to do long sessions, though they're good. I mean, I do long sessions, but it's not necessary, particularly at the beginning. You just do short sessions, 10, 15 minutes, and do it every day, though. You want to become familiar with this sense of space and let it grow, because it naturally grows. It organically grows into everyday life. So 10, 15 minutes in the morning, that's a good place to start.
Okay. Then another question is from Ashutosh, who's asking, is it advisable to listen to some soothing music while we do this meditation?
Yeah, this is an important question. There's a difference between mindfulness. There's two types of meditation, okay? And I'm saying this to people from India because I'm talking about your tradition, okay? There's two types of meditation. There's what's called form-based meditation. Form-based uses techniques like mantras or visualizations or bodily movements like Tai Chi from China, and a form-based uses technique in order to achieve something. Calming the mind, strengthening the chi, developing loving kindness, whatever. There's a second type of meditation called formless meditation. Formless meditation uses relatively no technique or no technique at all and doesn't seek to achieve anything. The formless meditation is about becoming familiar with our experience, not achieving anything. This instruction is in formless meditation. Very little technique. We're just like this. That's it. That's the technique. And we're not trying to achieve anything. We're not trying to become a better meditator. We're not trying to do it. We're just trying to become familiar with our experience. So, with that said, when you introduce a technique like listening to music or using mantra or even closing the eyes, you're seeking to achieve something, which is actually fine. There's many mindfulness-based disciplines like body scanning, listening to music that relaxes us, that brings down calm. And I encourage people to go right ahead and do it, get good instruction, learn what you're doing. But I do need to make a distinction. That's not the practice that I just gave you. The practice that I just gave you was the formless style of mindfulness meditation, and it's about becoming utterly familiar with the exact experience that you're having, rather than a preferred experience, one that's more relaxed, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, there's lots of cool stuff out there where they use, guided meditation and music and stuff. So, enjoy, see what happens.
Right. So Helish is another question. He says it's a great session, but he wanted a little more clarity on how to settle the eyes while meditating. Since you said that not to focus them at a point, but they are quite restless, darting about, he says.
Yeah, good question. Again, in this particular style of instruction, which is, by the way, very conservative, very traditional, the eyes are open, and often you can get instruction where the eyes are closed. Now, with the eyes open, you'll begin to notice, not begin to notice, but it's possible that you begin to focus on things. No problem. That's the eyes naturally get busy. If you do meditation for a long period of time in the shrine room, you'll look at the wood and you'll start seeing, oh, that looks like my Uncle Harry, or oh, it's a creative element of our minds that our visual capability gets curious. No problem. What you do when you're doing the meditation, the quality of the gaze is a soft gaze, looking down, maybe 3-4 feet out, a sense of gentle clarity. But if you start focusing on something or looking at, look at that, really like that, as soon as you notice that you're thinking, you label it thinking and you bring your attention back to your breathing. And the quality of this, and we won't get into this today, is you'll notice that the senses are synchronized. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the body, that we're just sitting here. Honestly, we're not even meditating, we're really just sitting here. We're just sitting here in the room and our senses are alive, period. So over time, taming the senses to sort of just come down and relax and be, that ultimately that takes its own place, so to speak. Okay?
All right, I hope that answered your question. Another question by Nidhi is that I felt my sense of touch and hearing amplified while I was meditating. What does that mean?
Yeah. What begins to happen through the practice is normally because we're inside our head rehearsing our lives rather than living them. Our senses get numbed. There's almost kind of a mental anesthesia that occurs with our senses. They become numbed. That's why we're, from my point of view at least, that's why we're constantly seeking entertainment and this kind of. When you practice this meditation, your senses come back to their natural place, and over time, you begin to notice that having this immediacy is very vivid, more vivid than we are used to. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes. They begin to appear heightened, but actually they're going back to their natural state because they were numbed. So that's very common. It doesn't mean anything. It's just natural that our senses come alive by training our attention to be in the present moment.
Thank you, Nidhi, for asking that. So now another question coming up from Karma Yogi, and he's asking, can you please tell me what to do after we label thinking and focus on our breath? How long do we continue to focus on our breath itself, and what next?
Yeah, good question. In this practice is called mindfulness awareness meditation. Most of the instruction that is done traditionally, as this is becoming a secular practice rather than a spiritual practice, is mindfulness. This is a mindfulness awareness meditation. What's the difference? Mindfulness is very simple. It's boring. All mindfulness is training the attention to stabilize on an object and remembering to do it whenever you want. I mean, right now, for many of us, our attention's all over the place. By doing this, we stabilize the attention. We can actually keep it on our hand for as long as we want. It's very simple. Now, what occurs out of that is we notice at some point that we are a vivid presence. We're bodily present. That this, our thoughts, our body, the phenomenal world, all this, it isn't like all chaos and we're trying to manage it like a project. There's just this immediacy, vivid immediacy. This movement from mindfulness into awareness, which naturally occurs from the practice, is a sense of presence, vivid presence. That vivid presence begins to give rise to a whole set of natural human qualities that unfold almost like a plant. It's like a very organic growing quality. Things like courage, confidence, openness, compassion, skillfulness. These begin to naturally occur. And much of the work that I do is, well, how do you work with those qualities as they unfold? How do you opening? So when you notice, when you escort your attention from a thought, you have to let go, open. Let go, open. Letting go is a very powerful skill. Well, off the cushion, begin to start noticing you don't hold on to a point of view. When you're in a conflict, you let go and you open. You know, this quality of letting go and opening becomes very strong, and that's part of the sense of presence. So we're getting down the road, but awareness is really what begins to unfold from the practice off the cushion in everyday life, and that becomes very powerful, very skillful. And working with that as it develops is the core to this practice.
Right. Thank you. So lots of questions coming in, so I'm going to continue asking them. There's Prakash who's asking two questions. I'm sort of combining both the two, and he's asking that, how has mindfulness living helped you, and what is the end goal of meditation?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it for over 40 years, and I've been doing it in a particular setting with under the guidance of some really, really skillful Tibetan masters. So I'm a very fortunate guy. I'm not a very good student, but I'm a very fortunate guy. And I've been able to come to some final conclusions about what it means to be human, which is very helpful. But I would say probably the most important thing that I've learned from it is how to be less arrogant, is to be more gentle as a human being, and to notice the sacredness of being alive, and to appreciate that at a very deep level. In terms of business, it's helped me a lot. I mean, just a very simple one is negotiating. I do a lot of negotiating. I've been negotiating my whole life as a business person. And normally you rush into a negotiation. You want to maximize your point of view and get from a point of view of mindfulness awareness, well, why take that point of view? That's very narrow. That limits your ability to be skillful in a negotiation. There's many, many, many views in a negotiation, and your view is probably the least most important. It's hard to come to. Most people don't get that, and it's hard emotionally to understand that. But for me personally, this become just second nature. In a negotiation, I know what I want, I get it, but it's not that important. I wonder what that guy wants. I wonder what that person wants. That's curious over there. So in negotiations, it's helped me a lot. So it's helped me. But what is the goal, right? Well, this is a good question. And what I'm about to say is going to sound a little too cute. But there is no goal to this practice. This is what I call the wisdom of achieving nothing. And you don't do this practice. This is about a different form of effort. We're not trying to achieve anything. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're not trying to become some better version of who we are. What we're doing is we're becoming familiar with inherent qualities of who we are, inherent qualities of the mind that are fundamentally healthy. And it's about becoming familiar with these qualities that are already there. They can't be achieved. You can't achieve your hand. There's something going on here that is already occurring that we need to become familiar with. And that's what the practice is about. Okay?
All right, thank you for those questions, Prakash. And before I take the next question, a few of you have been asking about the best book to read on meditation. And we're going to share a couple of links that Dr. Carroll, of books that Dr. Carroll has written. You could refer to those when you want to know more about mindful living or meditation. But here's the next question, which is by Manoj and Viswanathan both. They're asking the sort of same question, so combining that. So they want to know that how do you deal with the distraction of noise, etc. during the practice? So is there a particular setting necessary to effectively focus on the breathing and meditate, or you can do it anywhere?
Yeah, good question. What I would recommend is that when you do choose to practice, if you're doing it at your home, to have a nice setting, something that's not cluttered, somewhat uplifting, somewhat of a pleasant environment. If you have a yoga room, you do it where you do yoga. But if you're doing it at home, make sure that where you're practicing has an uplifted quality. It's simple. When I was in New York, as a kid in New York, I lived in a little apartment. I'd do it at the end of my bed, but it was at a window, and the window still had a little cloth on it, and it was just make it a little nice, basically. So the notion here, and if you are a dedicated meditator, you should create a little meditation area with your cushion and maybe a flower arrangement or whatever. But the issue here is a distraction. The question about the distraction. In this style of meditation, you cannot be distracted by any environmental experience. Because what you're doing here is you're escorting your attention to your breathing, and in the process, you're sitting in the room, breathing. You're just sitting in the room, breathing. The ability to attend to the breath isn't concentration and excluding your senses, it's actually opening to your senses. So if there's sounds, or if there's colors, or if a cat walks through the room, that's not a distraction. That's what you're experiencing. This is an important distinction between other forms of meditation. You're training the attention to open to what you're experiencing. So if there's loud trucks outside, you just sit there and loud trucks, no problem. You don't have to have a preferred experience. I prefer an experience without loud trucks. Now, obviously, as I said earlier, you want to have a meditation environment that's uplifted. And if there's loud trucks and exhaust coming through the window, you might want to find a better place. But generally speaking, sounds, sights, smells, those are what you're bringing your attention to rather than being distracted by. Okay?
All right. So the last question for the day, and before we close, I'm really not sure what that question means, but I will still put that out for you. So Reena wants to know that does mindfulness help in evolving or enhancing our SQ, which is spiritual quotient, or is it a practice to just involve or managing our EQ, which is emotional quotient?
Yeah, well, this is a very important question. There is no doubt, and I've done a lot of work on this, and if you read my books, you'll see it, that the mindfulness meditation rapidly strengthens emotional and social intelligence. So self-awareness, self-regulation, positive self-regard, empathy, empathetic accuracy, attunement, synchrony, all of those competencies are rapidly developed through the practice. So yes, it's a strong, and there's a lot of increasing research on how this practice strengthens emotional and social intelligence. The spiritual quotient. As probably many of you know, this practice was originally practiced by one of your colleagues, a guy named Siddhartha, many years ago. He was a yogi. And he came to a fundamental conclusion in this practice about what it means to be human. And that spiritual insight that he had is very available, more available than anyone would even imagine. And this practice makes it likely that one would discover that same discovery that that young man discovered 2,500 years ago in your country. Whatever that experience is don't believe it, have it. And for me, having been trained by great Tibetan masters, that experience is, of this being awake is very real, very available. And if people are curious about it, pursuing that, I strongly encourage you to do so.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for those questions. I think we have run out of time, so I'm just going to go ahead and thank Dr. Carroll. Dr. Carroll, thank you so much. That was an amazing session.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to all the listeners out there. And it was a real honor to be here in the middle of Philadelphia talking to a community in Mumbai. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's equally cool for us. I think we enjoyed the session, and like I said earlier, thank you for taking time this early in the day to actually come and talk to everybody. And wonderful session. All those attending here, I'd like to thank you for these very amazing questions. I think this was one of the most interactive sessions that we've had. Before I end, this session has been recorded. So in case any of you want to go back and look at any concepts, any ideas that Dr. Carroll has shared, then you can always refer to the recording. The instructions on how to access the recording will be emailed to you. And we will also be sharing links of Dr. Carroll's books, which you can refer. He's written a lot of them on mindfulness and how to be a more effective mindful reader. That will also be a part of our email. And right as soon as this webinar ends, there'll be a small survey that will pop up that will help us understand how much did you enjoy the session, how much of it is of value to you, and also give us insights on further topics. So request you to kindly help us fill that survey. In any case, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Dr. Carol, thanks once again. It's
Sure.
been lovely interacting with you. Wish everyone a good night ahead. Thanks. And with that, I'd like to close the webinar.